I'm Dr. Sadhana Jadhav Tilekar, Assistant Professor, Sri Balaji University, Pune. I will be your host for this session today. As we step into Industry 5.0, we are witnessing a remarkable shift where human intelligence and advanced technologies meet. Data analytics is at the heart of this transformation, enabling industries to harness insights that drive innovation, efficiency, and sustainability. Today, we will explore how data analytics can empower organizations to make informed decisions, optimize operations, and create personalized experiences. I encourage all participants to think about how these insights can be applied to your own fields. Your participation is vital to our collective learning. So before starting this session, some instructions to the participants. During the session, participants cannot unmute themselves. You may use Zoom chat box for questions, which will be answered during question and answer session. Feedback cum attendance link will be shared in the question and answer session and is available only for 15 minutes. Certificates will be issued to only those who submit the feedback form. So let's dive in and discover the exciting possibilities that await us in this new industrial era. I'm looking forward to our discussions and insight today. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Archana Shrivastava, ma'am, who is currently working as a director, Balaji Institute of Management, and head of the department, PM HRD, Sri Balaji University, Pune. Ma'am having a diverse experience of 27 years. She pursued her education in the field of electronics and telecom engineering and later did MBA with a specialization in HR. Ma'am was awarded the doctoral degree in the area of employee engagement. Her area of research interest in which she has published papers, articles, and case studies include employees engagement, leadership, human capital, organizational stress, and organizational behavior. Ma'am has authored 3 books titled Human Resource Management, Human Relation, and HR Analytics. Ma'am has won the gold medal for conceptualizing, delivering HR Analytics course under the V School Innovation Award 2023 category at the 34th National Convention of Association of Indian Management School, that is AIMS at Coimbatore. Ma'am has conducted many workshops on HR Analytics and a joint certification program on HR Analytics by Sri Balaji University and the Apex HR body, National Human Resource Development Network. Ma'am has worked extensively in conceptualizing, implementing, and evaluating skills and competency building initiative to enhance the employability of management students. So without further delay, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Archana ma'am. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sadhana ma'am. And very, very good afternoon to all of you.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I know a little difficult session soon after lunch, but I'll try to make it as interesting as is possible. So the topic that we have chosen is a very contemporary topic, that is how we can leverage data analytics in Industry 5.0. So just allow me to share my PPT with all of you. Right. So if someone can give me a confirmation whether my PPT is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
All right. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That is how we can make use of data, particularly in Industry 5.0. As we speak, we are looking at Industry 5.0, which is unfolding all around us. And in this scenario, how can we use data analytics is what we're going to be talking about today, right? So the roadmap that we're going to follow for today would be something like this. So we'll talk about business analytics in general, and then we'll also refer to and try and understand what is the implication, what is the meaning of Industry 5.0. We will understand certain key concepts like what is big data, what are the characteristics of big data, the types of analytics that we can use. We'll talk about a very important concept, that of sentiment analysis. And towards the end of the session, we'll take many examples from the industry as to how different companies have leveraged, have made use of data analytics to achieve better business outcomes. So that is going to be the flow of our discussion today. Now, a very famous quote by Edward Deming, which says that without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So in today's times, our opinion doesn't matter. What we feel doesn't matter. What our gut says doesn't matter. But all the decisions that we take should be based on data. The decisions that we take today should be data driven. And when we start taking data-driven decisions in business, we say that we are practicing evidence-based management. So gone are the times, gone are the days when business decisions were taken based on your gut feeling, based on your opinion, based on what you felt. But today we have to take decisions which are based on what data says. So we have to allow the data to speak. We have to understand what the data says and take decisions that are based on the factual data, what the factual data is telling us. A very important, or one of my favorite quotes given by Ronald Coase says that if you torture the data long enough, it will confess. So the need of the hour is to develop abilities, to develop competencies, to analyze data, to draw insights from this data, and to take actionable decisions based on these insights that we are able to draw by analyzing the data. Because we're talking about how we can leverage data analytics in Industry 5.0, let us step back for a moment and just very quickly trace the evolution of management, trace the industrial revolutions that the world has seen. So if we talk about the very beginning, if we talk about the first industrial revolution, Industry 1.0, this was all about mechanical machines. So machines that would work on, principles of physics, maybe a lever, maybe a wheel, maybe a cantilever, maybe a pulley. All of these machines that worked on principles of physics, but would help our work become easier. So that is what Industry 1.0 was all about. And this was somewhere in 1800s. Then came Industry 2.0. And Industry 2.0, the benchmark thing, or the point of inflection was the discovery of the electric power. So when electric power was developed, we created electric machines. And electricity was much cheaper, much cleaner, and we were able to indulge in mass production. Whereas earlier the scale of production was low, but with the advent of the electrical machines, the scale of production went up manyfold, and we started producing in mass, right? The famous assembly line concept that we have also sort of came into existence during Industry 2.0. And if we talk in terms of the timelines, this Industry 2.0 unfolded in the 1900s. Moving on to Industry 3.0, this was marked by the discovery of semiconductors. And semiconductors are the materials that we make use of in all our integrated circuits, in all our computers, right? So the discovery of the semiconductors heralded Industry 3.0, and computers were designed, and many automation started happening with the help of these semiconductor devices that were there. Again, in terms of the timelines, if we talk, this was sometime in the era of 2000s or 2000. Industry 3.0 gave way to Industry 4.0. This Industry 4.0 was marked by IoT, the Internet of Things. So Internet became central to everything, and many other machines, many other systems, cyber systems, physical systems, were all connected to each other through the Internet, through the World Wide Web. So that is how Industry 4.0 is characterized by IoT, or the Internet of Things. Machines could communicate with each other remotely. Machines could be controlled remotely because they were connected through the Internet, IoT, Internet of Things. They were connected through the Internet. So this was somewhere around 2010. Now, today we are looking at Industry 5.0, and roughly we can say that the era of Industry 5.0 started somewhere in 2020. This era of Industry 5.0 is all about human and machine collaboration. It is all about augmented reality. It's all about humans working side by side with machines or with bots, right? So that is Industry 5.0. Industry 5.0 is all about metaverse. It is all about immersive experience that you have across different platforms. So today it will not be very unusual that a person goes to office and realizes that the person is not working with a human being, but is working with a bot who happens to be the colleague of that person. So that is what Industry 5.0 is all about. That is the collaboration between the humans and the robots, or the humans and the machines. right? So here are, the evolution, the industrial revolutions for your very quick reference, and we would be limiting our discussions to how data can be leveraged in Industry 5.0. A very important quote, again by Deloitte, which says that the focus on big data will challenge HR leaders to build a people analytics team, bring together multidisciplinary skills, and develop a long range plan to datafy, right? And it is rightly said that, data has become the new oil today. So data has become the new gold, or data has become the new currency. If you look at companies like, let's say, Amazon, the biggest e-retailer in the world, what is their value? What is their wealth? The wealth that they have is the data that they have about their customers, the data they have collected about their customer behavior, and they have drawn actionable insights from this data to take business decisions, which are, ultimately yielding them huge, humongous profits. So definitely, data has become the new oil in today's times. If we talk, okay, now we'll just talk about certain basic terms that are often used, that are commonly used when we talk about data analytics. The first of which is business analytics. I'm sure everyone has heard about business analytics. Many of the students here would also be following a specialization in business analytics in your MBA courses, or would be studying a subject related to business analytics. So what is business analytics? So first of all, business analytics is an iterative and a systematic process. Iterative meaning that it repeats again and again, right? It's not a one-time process, but it's a process that we have to do again and again. It goes in a loop. It's an iterative and systematic process of collating, sorting, processing, and studying business data, right? So we have to collect data, we have to sort data, we have to organize data, we have to process data. All of this data we're talking to is about business data. And how do we sort, how do we process data? We make use of statistical models, we make use of algorithms, and with the help of these statistical models and algorithms, we try to draw insights. And please remember that these insights should be actionable insights. So we try and understand what is good for business by the data analytics that we are doing, and accordingly we implement these decisions to achieve better business outcomes. That's the whole idea. That in crux, that in a sense, is what business analytics is all about. So the goal of business analytics is to facilitate data-driven decision making in organizations. And why are we doing this? We are doing this because when we take data-driven decisions, these decisions are free of bias. There's no personal bias. There is no, conscious or unconscious bias that is creeping in. These, because data never lies, right? We as human beings can have our own idiosyncrasies, we can have our own biases, sometimes which are conscious, sometimes which are not conscious. But when we take data-driven decisions, these decisions are going to be supported by facts, right? By figures, by data, and hence they are less likely to be having any kind of bias. In this digital age, data is considered as an asset, and business analytics can prove that this data will lend a competitive advantage to organizations. So today you talk about any digital business models. Most of them are using data which is giving them the competitive advantage. Great examples are, whenever you log in to any e-commerce site, every click, every move that you make, every navigation that you do on their website is captured. And all of this data is processed to understand what kind of a person you are. What is your consumer buying behavior, right? So in fact, a personality clone is developed for every single user who comes to these websites based on the navigation, based on the choices a person makes on the website. And there you have a personality clone of the person. And this personality clone is then used to do targeted marketing to the customers. So definitely, if this process is done properly, this can prove to be offering a competitive advantage to the particular organization. Very often we use a term that is big data. So as the name suggests, big data is big. But when we say big, how big? What is the quantum that we are referring to? what exactly will classify as being a big data, right? So in terms of volume, big data can be petabytes or it can be exabytes. So these are again units which are used to measure the volume of big data. If that is difficult for you to visualize, what a petabyte or how big a petabyte would be or how big an exabyte would be, it would be a little bit more easier for you to comprehend that when we say big data, we are referring to a database consisting of billions and trillions of records, right? So if you have billions or trillions of record, if that is the scale of data that you have in your database, then that data can be called as big data. So just to give you an example, the census of India, which has the database of every single citizen of India, and we are close to 1.3 billion people in this country. So that census of India, that data of all the citizens of India can be considered as a big data. So big data, as the name suggests, is huge. It is big, right? And this data can be collected through different sources, right? It need not only be collected through, let's say, the web, the internet. This data can also be collected through mobile data. This data could be connected through various sensors that are put across. It could be collected through maybe the traffic cameras that are put across on the roads. So the big data can be collected from different kind of sources and can therefore have different kind of formats. It's important to understand that big data can have all different kinds of formats. Yes, of course, along with being very voluminous, very huge in nature, right? So in the next slide, what we'll try to understand is the characteristics of big data. So basically, when we try to understand what big data is, we talk about the 5 V's, right? And what are these 5 V's? So the first V that we talk about in the context of big data, when we're talking about the characteristics of big data, is the volume. So just now, as we have said, that big data is huge. It is enormous. It is humongous. And when you have billions and trillions of records, that would classify as big data, right? Big data also has variety. That means the formats in which this data can exist are different. So you can have, big data which is in the form of numbers, right? Numerals. You can have big data which is in the form of letters or text. You can also have big data which is in the form of pictures. You can have big data which is in the form of music files, sound files, audio files, right? So big data comes in different diverse kind of formats. That is why we say it has got variety. It is not just numbers that you have in big data. You can have text as well. You can have pictures as well. You can have PDFs. You can have audio files. You can have video files, and a whole lot of different kinds of formats are included when we say variety of the big data. The third V is the velocity. Because the first V says that the volume is huge, the volume is humongous, right? And we are going to deal with big data in real time, which means what? That you will have very high processing capability. You should be able to process the big data very fast. The speed at which you can process the big data, draw insights and implement or take decisions based on these insights, that factor, that characteristic is known as velocity, right? So just to sum up what we have on the slide, the first 3 V's which characterize big data are volume, variety, and velocity. Moving on to the fourth V, veracity. Now, what is the meaning of veracity? So the degree of accuracy that you have in your data sets. How trustworthy, how reliable are your data sets? Or because when you collect large amounts of data, there tends to be distortions. These distortions we refer to as noise. So is your data pure? Is your data authentic? Is your data trustworthy? Or does it have a lot of noise, lot of distortions, lot of abnormality, right? So the degree of accuracy or trustworthiness of a data is referred to as veracity. And the last V that we talk about in terms of big data is value. Because you're collecting huge amount of data, you're going to warehouse that data, you're going to process that data, right? So this data that you collect should be relevant for you, should be relevant for your business, should be relevant for your organization. Otherwise, you're investing time, effort, money, everything, but this data that you have collected is not important to you, is not relevant to you, is not useful to you, then everything goes down the abyss, everything is a waste. So how much of value can this data contribute when analyzed is also a very, very important factor to be kept in mind whenever we're talking about big data. So these are the 5 B's or the 5 characteristics which help you define and understand what big data is all about. So just to summarize this in a pictorial form, we have put this in the slide over here. So big data, the 5 dimensions are volume, variety, value, velocity, and veracity. The 5 B's which help you understand what big data is all about. Now, having understood big data, let us also try and understand as to what or how can you leverage this data? What can you do with this data? What kind of analytics can you use along with this data so it helps you take better decisions, so that it helps you practice evidence-based management? So when we talk about business analytics, we can generally categorize it into 4 different types, 4 different categories. The first, of course, is descriptive analytics, which is a preliminary kind of analytics. More advanced, going one step ahead, one step more, up the level, is diagnostic analytics. This is followed by predictive analytics, and then finally we have prescriptive analytics. Now let's look at each of these analytics in a little bit more detail to understand what exactly is the connotation, what exactly is the meaning of these different kinds of analytics. So starting with the most elementary, that is descriptive analytics. Now descriptive analytics works on historical data, data which has been collected from the past. So certain events have elapsed, you have collected that data, so that data becomes historical data. For example, what were the sales figures for the past 1 year? Let's say you collect the data for every month of the past 1 year, right? So that is historical data. Or what were the employee engagement levels in the last year? So that is historical data. What were the sales figures for the past 5 years? This is historical data. So descriptive analytics analyzes this historical data to understand what happened. So something which happened, what happened? So the sales figures went up by 10%, or the sales figures were stagnant at the same levels. What happened? So descriptive analytics will typically help you understand what happened, right? So they help you understand the reasons behind the success or failure in the past. The issue with this kind of analytics is, while it gives you insights as to how you can correct the problems that happened in the past so they are not repeated in the future. But the problem is that you cannot go back and correct the past, right? So this is an analysis that you do at the hind end. So you will learn for the future, but of course you cannot take corrective action to whatever has already happened, right? So common examples of descriptive analytics, we produce various kinds of reports in organizations. So some of the common examples of descriptive analytics are, employee absenteeism report. So employees absented themselves in the past, let's say 6 months. So what are those figures? What are those values? That is descriptive analytics, right? Employee turnover report. So what was the employee turnover rate in the previous year? Inventory report. How did you stock? What were the stock levels? In the past. What were the workflow reports? How many people were absent? How many people were present? What were the kind of leaves that were taken? What were the sales and revenue reports? So if you look, all of these reports are made using past data, historical data. They are all based on events that have already happened, right? In terms of statistical analysis or statistical metrics, if we talk about, descriptive analytics will typically be making use of statistical metrics like mean, median, mode, standard deviation, variance, right, skewness, kurtosis. So all of this which helps you understand your historical data. So this is the most elementary kind of analytics that we can do in any organization, right? The next step, if we go one level beyond that, the next level that we have is diagnostic analytics. So diagnostic analytics is a little more advanced than descriptive analytics in the sense it also works on historical data, but other than understanding what happened, which descriptive analytics gives you, diagnostic analytics also helps you understand why did this happen. So let us say if the sales figures were decreasing. So the decrease in the sales pattern is given to you by descriptive analytics. But if you apply diagnostic analytics, it will also help you understand why. What was the reason that the sales figures were decreasing, right? If you talk for the HR community here, the HR fraternity here, if the employee engagement levels were decreasing, why were they decreasing is something which the diagnostic analytics will also help you understand. So basically, when we do diagnostic analytics, we're talking about a root cause analysis, right? So we have a cause and we have an effect. So diagnostic analytics helps you understand the correlation between the cause and the effect. So in diagnostic analytics, we will be trying to understand what is the cause and what is the effect of that cause, right? But this again, please understand, is also dealing with historical data. But it is one level up in terms of maturity as compared to descriptive analytics. But you cannot always be, living in the past. Of course, you can, learn from the past, but then business has to be done looking forward, right, for the future. So you need, models, or you need analytics which will help you predict, forecast what is going to happen in the future, right? So when you're predicting, when you're trying to forecast, or when you're trying to, come up with the possibility of future events, this is known as predictive analytics. So in this kind of analytics, you'll try and build predictive models which will help you understand that what is going to happen in the future given certain inputs, right? So for example, if you want to sort of understand the turnover intention, whether your employees are thinking about quitting. When they quit, it's too late to get them back, right? They've already made the decisions, they've already left your organization. And this is very painful if the people who are quitting are performing employees, right? So it is very important that we anticipate, we take certain preemptive measures to understand which performing employee is considering quitting the organization or has a high turnover intention. If we are able to predict that using the predictive analytics, we will be able to take certain proactive steps to retain that performing employee. So that is the importance of also engaging in predictive analytics. Predictive analytics will also help you predict that what would be your future revenue, what would be your future profits, right? Or where the organization will be positioned vis-a-vis its competitors. So you're trying to predict, making use of probabilities, right? So again, speaking in statistical terms, predictive analytics will make use of probabilities, right? So various probabilistic models will be used when we are doing predictive analytics. So it can use data mining, it can use statistical modeling, right? It can use machine learning algorithms, algorithms like classification algorithms, regression, clustering techniques, all of this. But basically, fundamentally, because we are talking about the future and no one has seen the future, so we can only talk in terms of probabilities. So predictive analytics, the basis would be we would be dealing with probabilities. We will be talking about what's going to happen in the future, the probability of what is going to happen in the future. So that is the, we can say, the third kind of analytics that you have. So predictive analytics, some common examples, and many of us have come across this in our day-to-day lives. So as I said, in the HR field, you can apply predictive analytics to predict which all employees are having a turnover intention, right? In the healthcare center, we are just out of the COVID-19 pandemic, but when this pandemic hit and people were, not knowing what's happening, there was so much of confusion, chaos. But yes, some scientists were trying to use predictive analytics to predict when this pandemic will start weaning away, when this pandemic will start declining, decreasing. And also, they tried to predict that what would be the hospitalization that would be required. Again, these were key predictions that were very, very important to manage the very deadly COVID-19 pandemic that we all have gone through. In the finance sector, predicting the credit score, whether the person will repay a loan or not. What is the probability that this person will repay a loan or not, right? So basis that you can give the loan or you can, hold back the loan because if the probability says that the repayment of the loan is very, very low because of XYZ reasons, because your model says that this person has very low probability of repaying the loan, then what you can do is you can not go ahead and sanction the loan. In the e-commerce space, again, if we talk about the e-retailers, you will have to predict the customer's preferences based on the buying behavior. You can predict what the customer is likely to buy, what the customer is likely to be interested in, what would be the range, what would be the spend, what would be the monthly spend that this customer has. So again, in that space, we can make use of predictive analytics. It also applies to sales. It also applies to IT security. We can predict what are the possible security breaches, and we can again take, proactive, preemptive measures so that this security breach can be averted, can be diverted. So these are the three kinds of analytics so far. Now we have another kind of analytics which is known as prescriptive analytics. This is the most advanced stage of analytics that you can have, right? So predictive analytics tells you what's going to happen in future. But if you look, that is not enough. But you want a certain future. The goal is very, very clear to you. So prescriptive analytics tells you that in order to achieve that goal in future, what is it that you should do today? What interventions you should implement today so that you are able to reach that goal in future. So that is known as prescriptive analytics. Just like when you go to a doctor and the doctor says you want to get well, of course we all want to get well. So he says in order to get well, these are the medicines that you have to take. These are the tests that you should do. This is the kind of food that you should eat. So he gives you a prescription. When you follow the prescription, you achieve the desired outcome in the future. So prescriptive analytics is something which is much on the similar lines, which tells you that what is it that I should do today in order to achieve the desirable outcomes, the desirable goals in the future, right? So that is prescriptive analytics. Examples of prescriptive analytics, if you remember again, I would go back and refer to the COVID-19 pandemic. We are all lucky to have survived that, and we are all here today in this session. So we all need to be grateful also, right? We were the lucky ones. But if you look at that time, when very little was known about the COVID-19 pandemic, COVID-19, the novel virus. So we were saying in order to survive, in order to prevent getting the COVID-19 infection, what is it that you should do? So we were told that social distancing is important, that wearing a mask at all times in public is important, right? It was said if we have lockdown, if we can just segregate people, if we don't allow people to come in contact with each other, this very, very contagious disease that was there could be contained. So again, this was an example of prescriptive analytics, which was telling us that what is it that we needed to do that time in order to survive, right? In terms of manufacturing, if we talk, right? So if we want the machinery to be running, what kind of maintenance is required? What kind of how we are going to use that machine. So all of that is again prescriptive analytics, so that the machine can be running and the depreciation is minimized. So if we talk about these four levels of analytics that we have, and we try to understand in terms of two parameters here. What is the value that each of this kind of analytics adds? But at the same time, we need to discuss about the difficulty in practicing and implementing this kind of analytics, right? So as you can see on the graph, on the y-axis, we've got the value that this particular kind of analytics adds. And on the x-axis, you have the difficulty level. So easiest to implement and the least value out of the four is added by descriptive analytics, which tries to answer what happened, right? And diagnostic analytics is a little bit more difficult to practice and implement and adds more value than descriptive analytics. And along with helping you understand what happened, it also helps you understand why did it happen? What was the reason, right? So we are now moving from hindsight, right? Something which has happened and you're analyzing it now. So that is hindsight, to insight. And insight is you're looking forward, right? So we'll go one level up and we're talking about predictive analytics. What will happen? This definitely adds more value than the preceding two, but again is also more difficult to practice and implement as compared to the predicting two. But definitely we are moving from hindsight, using historical data, analyzing the past, to trying to predict, understand, forecast what will happen in the future. So that is insight, right? And prescriptive analytics is how can you make something happen? How can you achieve the desirable goal in future? What is it that you need to do today? So we are talking about foresight. So on the continuum, if you see, we are moving from hindsight to insight to foresight. And also we can say we are moving from information to optimization, arriving at the best possible solution given the constraints that we have. So from information to optimization. That is what we see on the continuum. Right. Next, we'll move to another important term, that is data aggregation. Because we're talking about big data, which is very, very large, if you look at that big data, it may not be possible for you to comprehend what information it is conveying. And therefore, it becomes extremely important to summarize this data, to put this data into a very palatable form, right? Maybe in a tabular form or in a summary form or in a pictorial form or in a graph form, so that by looking at the summary, you're able to comprehend what the data is trying to tell you. So this process of summarizing or expressing the data in a summary form so that it becomes useful for you is known as data aggregation. OLAP is, of course, a common technique that is used for your data aggregation. If we talk about examples across the industry, how data aggregation is used. So companies that follow STP, so for proper segmentation, targeting, and positioning decisions, they generally make use of data aggregation, because you would try to cluster, or you will try to classify your customers into different segments, which will definitely help you in your STP strategy. When you're sending personalized messages, and today we all know that you don't get bulk emails, but you get very personalized emails. Or when you log into let's say Flipkart, you only get to see those products which you have sort of at least served about earlier, or maybe you would have bought. So based on your buying behavior, based on your purchase behavior, you are put into a particular segment, and then the marketing messages that you will get will be completely aligned to the segment or the group into which you were put. So again, here your data aggregation is being made use of. We also have data aggregation applications in the financial and the investing sector. So we have a whole lot of finance companies which advise you that maybe you should put your money in these stocks, you should put your money in these bonds, or you should put your money in this in mutual funds, or into various avenues. So how do they decide this? So again, they collect data from whatever is happening across the world, and collate that data, summarize that data to draw meaningful insights as to which avenues will be more profitable, which avenues will be less risky, etc. So data aggregation finds a lot of applications even in the finance and travel industry, right? Data mining, I'm sure all of you have heard about the word data mining. So what is the meaning of this term? When you try to identify patterns or when you try to identify trends in data, right, that is known as data mining. So when you are doing sense making of the huge amount of data that you have, right, you're trying to understand, does it have certain trends? Does it follow a particular pattern, right? Are there cyclic trends? Or how is there some kind of sequence to things, right? That is known as data mining. Data mining is also known as knowledge discovery, right? So when you try to extract the knowledge that is there in your raw data, that is known as data mining. The various algorithms that you can use for data mining are classification. So when do we use classification? When the demographics is known, when you know the gender maybe, when you know the tier of city in which the respondents are residing, in which the cases are residing, when the demographics is known, we go in for a technique that is known as classification. As against when this demographics is non-known to you, but you want to still find out the similarities or differences between different groups, we go in for something which is known as clustering. When you want to find out the relationship between two and more variables, how does one variable impact the others? Or how does a group of variables impact another group of variables? Then we go in for the various kinds of regression techniques that you have. We can also make use of neural networks. So neural networks, they try to imitate the way human brain works, the way human brain thinks, right? And the advantage of neural networks is when you change the input, it will automatically, take that into account and create the best possible output that you can have, right? So any of these techniques and many more can be used for data mining of big data, right? So some of the phases of data mining process, we have business understanding. It's very important to know your business. That is, above all other things, right? Other statistical methods, algorithms, machine learning, these are all tools for understanding your data. So you understand your business first, then you gather your data, you prepare the data. That means you will have to remove the unclean data, the missing data. You may be required to format the data, and then you may be required to use any of the statistical methods to analyze your data, right? Once you've analyzed your data, you have to try and understand what kinds of patterns are there, what are the outputs. You will have to interpret the output that analysis gives you, and then you have to deploy this into your business. We'll also talk about an interesting concept, that is text mining. So when we say big data, we said that this data has variety. That means it is not only in terms of numbers. It can be text, it can be pictures, it can be audio files. If you look around, 90% of the data around us is in text form. It's not in numbers form, right? Even as we speak today, the audio is not in terms of numbers, right? This PPT is not in terms of numbers, right? So most of the data that is around us is non-numerical data, but it is more difficult to analyze non-numerical data, but understand that this non-numerical data is all around us, and therefore it has loads and loads of knowledge which we need to understand and decode. So the techniques for doing that is, one of the techniques for doing that is text mining, right? So what is text mining? It is a process of exploring, analyzing large amounts of unstructured text data, right? With the help of softwares, with the aim of identifying concepts, patterns, topics, keywords, and certain other attributes. So that is text mining. And often, NLP, natural language processing, discovery, knowledge discovery, data mining, information retrieval, and of course, statistics. All these are used whenever you are doing a text mining. If you look at the process of text mining, the various steps, of course, is text pre-processing. before you subject your text data for analysis, you have to clean the data, right? So that's known as pre-processing, right? Then you may be required to transform your data into formats which can be analyzed easily, okay? Which feature you want to select when you want to analyze the data? You'll be mining the data, that is trying to understand the patterns that your data is telling you. You'll evaluate that data and you will apply that data into your decision, into your business, into your organization. So this sixth step is the process of text mining as we see it. Okay. Advantages of text mining, as I've already said, that data which is non-numerical is all around us, and therefore it's very important to understand this data. Text data conveys emotions which numbers cannot convey, right? So text data can be used by e-commerce companies, by government agencies. It can be used for predicting capability for the society, identifying even criminal activities, terrorist activities, the kind of traffic that you get on the internet before criminal activities. Again, all of this is text data, the analysis of text data. So these are some of the applications that you can have for text data. Some of the disadvantages of text data is the technology that you need for doing text analytics is, of course, much more advanced, right? And another important concern that companies collecting the data, they collect your data without your consent and permission, right? So somewhere they are encroaching your privacy. So your data is not, there can always be breach of this kind of data. So these are some of the concerns. So if you are a user of Flipkart or Amazon or any of these, your data is being collected without your consent. Of course, the companies say that they use it for enhancing the customer experience. But we all know that because data today is the new gold, data is being traded to other companies. You have the Cambridge Analytica, the entire scandal by Facebook was there, where Facebook, without the consent, without the explicit consent of its customers, was trading their data to other companies, was selling off their data to other companies. So these are some concerns that you can have when this is there. Then certain other important keywords that are there, that is stop words. Okay, so when you're doing text analysis, you'll find that whole lot of words do not carry any meaning, individually. For example, I by itself doesn't mean anything. Me by itself doesn't mean anything. Is doesn't mean anything. So when you're subjecting, something for text analytics, these kind of words should be removed from analysis, right? And therefore they're known as stop words, right? So removing these kind of words which individually do not communicate any much information is known as stop words, right? Then there's another concept of stemming, right? What is the meaning of stemming? Stemming means that, for example, connect. So connect would mean the same thing as connected, would mean the same thing as connection, right? So when we are subjecting data for text analytics, we remove these variations. We only consider the root word, right? So we only consider the lemma as it is known. So we'll consider only connect. So even if connected is there, it will be considered as connect, but not separate. So connected will not be considered as a separate word with respect to connect. So this concept is known as stemming. After you have applied the stop words, after you have done stemming, whatever words now remain are subjected to text analytics. And these words will not have any connection with each other. So it is like you've put all of these words into one bag, and all the words that have gone into that one bag will be analyzed without any respective connections or relationship with each other. There'll be no semantic relationship connection with each other. And this bag of words, whatever words are going to be processed now for text analytics, that this is known as bag of words or BAW, right? It's understood as bag of words or BAW. Some of the applications of text mining, we can use it on social media for understanding the emotions that people have towards products that they buy or towards events what are the emotions. If you have sent your CV to, let's say, Naukri.com or Monster.com, they will filter your CV based on certain keywords. So here again, text analytics is being used for filtering out, your CVs. We can also use this for spam filtering. So if you have wondered, how come that certain mails are directed to the spam folder, they don't reach your inbox and clutter it, because here again, certain text analytics is used, and certain words when seen in the email, they are directed to the spam folder but will not come into your inbox, right? Fraud detection through claims, right? So insurance companies, insurance sectors, they also take advantage of text mining technology by combining results of text analytics with structured data, and they try to prevent frauds and expedite process claims, right? So these are some of the applications that you have with respect to this thing. We'll just talk about two more terms here: data visualization. So how do you present the data? It's very important that you present the data in a form which is easily understood, which can be easily comprehended, which is very palatable. So we have data visualization techniques. We can represent data through dynamic charts, as Power BI, helps you do that. Or you can depict data with the help of mind maps or certain infographics. So you can make use of Tableau, you can make use of Power BI, and many other such softwares are available for you to do the sentiment analysis. Is about understanding what are the emotions that people express in text, right? So sentiment analysis, it's also known as opinion mining or emotion AI, and it makes use of NLP, natural language processing technique, to understand that when people post, let's say, certain comments, certain product reviews, are they happy? Are they sad? Are they frustrated? Did they like the product? Did they not like the product? So understanding the sentiments that are there when people project the reviews comes under sentiment analysis, right? So I'll close with this example here. I think most of us have made use of Spotify, and Spotify tries to give you recommendations which are based according to your likings, right? So when you make a playlist, it is at the back end, the hind end is trying to understand what is it that you like, what genre of music that you like, and therefore it comes up, uses this to give you a recommendation list, tries to show that genre of music whenever you log into Spotify. So again, Spotify does make wide use of sentiment analysis. Yeah, I think I'll stop here, Sadhna ma'am. We're running a little out of time. So if there are any questions, I'd like to take that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful and engaging session, ma'am, for sharing your insights on very interesting topic. And yes, I would like to open the floor for questions. If you have any queries or thoughts you would like to share, please feel free to unmute yourself or type your question in the chat box. So I will start the first, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm very much curious to know, as you mentioned that why do we say data is the new oil?
So when we say that data is the new gold, what we are referring to today is, making use of data. If companies are able to leverage data, if companies are able to warehouse data, understand data, then they will be able to take decisions which will give them better profitability, which will give them a bigger customer base, right? So what is it that, if you look at, again, the e-retailers, if you compare Flipkart and Amazon, so they are just aggregators. So they don't make the products that they are selling. So what can be their differentiator? Their differentiator is the customer service, right? How easy or it is to navigate the websites, what kind of service that they get. So for this, they need to understand each and every customer that is logging into their website. So when they're able to collect data and create, let's say, personality clones of these people, they are able to do targeted marketing with respect to this. They are able to serve these customers in very, unique, customized ways. This definitely will give them a competitive advantage when compared to others. So it is not an overstatement to say that definitely data is the new gold today. Even if you look at the Forbes list of the most valuable companies, the top 5 companies you will find are all digital companies. There is not even a single oil company that features in the Forbes most valuable companies list. That's of course by market capitalization. Earlier, yes, the oil companies used to figure there, but today, if you see, they're all digital companies. They're all companies that are using data, big data technologies at their very best. And the ability to do so, the competence to do so, has made them the most valuable companies. So NVIDIA today, the gamification company, has overtaken, Apple. And if you talk about the market capitalization, it is more than 3 trillion, right? So all of this has been possible because they have very acute, very sharp, very astute data analyzing, data warehousing capabilities and competencies.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, even another interesting terminology you mentioned, and that is sentiment analysis. So in this context, I wanted to know what are the limitations of this sentiment analysis?
Right. So while there are, of course, many, many advantages, and we said that sentiment analysis makes use of NLP, natural language processing technology. But sometimes what happens is when people are expressing themselves, let's say on social media, or when they are, giving a review of a particular product, they may also put, emotions like emoticons are there. We often use a smiley face or a sad face or a crying face, or we put a thumbs up. So these kind of emotions is very, very difficult for the sentiment analysis technologies to interpret. What exactly does it mean? Also, certain things are interpreted differently in different cultures. So when you are doing this kind of thing, when you have a global audience, so again, your sentiment analysis may not work out properly or correctly because the same connotation, the same word may have a different connotation in different cultures, different countries, right? So for example, someone after seeing a car said, "I dropped dead when I saw the car," right? So we as human beings understand the person really was so amazed, so awestruck by looking at the car, but the word dead is there, and the way the NLP is programmed is dead is a negative word. So probably it would interpret this as a negative comment by the customer, whereas this was a very, very positive comment. The customer was absolutely fell in love when the person saw the car. So these are some of the limitations that we have when we are making use of sentiment analysis.
Great, great. So thank you, Archana ma'am, for that insightful discussion. And I hope everyone found today's session informative and inspiring. Further, I would like to thank Mr. Sudhir Sharma, President AIMS, all the board members, AIMS secretaries, and lastly, the lovely audience. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.